Welcome to the Fantasy Thinker. I'm Jared Codemanch, and today we are going to be talking about Gene Wolfe's The Fifth Head of Cerberus. This is a collection of three novellas that he wrote way back in 1972. That he originally wrote the first one as a standalone, and then he wrote the other two as a companion pieces to the first one. And these books, these three novellas, were collected into one volume, as also called The Fifth Head of Cerberus. The first story gives us a setting of a mansion that's in on this world. I think it's called Saint Croix or Saint Anne, one of those two. There's two planets that are both colonized by a French speaking people. So right off the bat, we're hit with this kind of conceit that the French are colonizing space, and you also are given hints that other cultures and nations may have been colonizing other parts of space. But we're mostly focused right here on this one here. These two planets that are colonized by a French-speaking people. Uh, moi, like moi. No. So the um, the first story gives us this setting. It's told from the point of view of a boy who's growing up in this house that's kind of like a mansion, and there are servants, and there's a master. So it's very very colonial sounding and very late 19th century, early 20th century feel to it, even though we're introduced to aspects of science fiction. Uh, which this is part of the Sci-fi Masterworks collection, and I think it's the seventh or eighth book or eighth book maybe. And so we're introduced to this setting, which is kind of there's a contrast here. It's very futuristic, and it's some of its um, situations and conditions, like space travel had to have been invented. He doesn't focus on that at all. He doesn't give us how or why or how people got here, but it's just assumed that it happened. But what he actually more focuses on is the science fiction-y part of it, is the idea of cloning and the idea of like robots and robotics. So the boy grows up basically, and this isn't too much of a spoiler. I'm not giving any spoilers away for this review here. But the boy grows up with a robot caretaker, basically, and we find out that this robot has the imprinted personality of his father. Um, who's the master of the house? So it just you get kind of a little bit of both worlds there. Um, but and how much of this robot is a conscious being is discussed in the story. Whether or not it's totally, you know, whether he has total, um, artificial actual intelligence, consciousness, or whether it's just all imprinted memory from his master. That is pretty much left up to us to decide. But it's a question brought up, and it's very interesting, uh, and it has to do with the theme of identity that's really running throughout all three of these novels here. And so the boy who is called Number Five. Um, when you're given a number as a name, that also has to do a number on your own identity, right? So, and the boy, you could metaphorically relate Number Five to being the fifth head of Cerberus. Um, the house he lives in is called, oh, I got it right here. It's called House of the Dog, but it's given a French name, Maison du Chien. Uh, so that that's where these this reference to the dog that guards Hades in the Greek mythology. Um, and the so there's little hints and references to all this stuff in the story itself, and you can read it to find out. It's pretty interesting, pretty key. And Wolfe is a very subtle writer with his hints to other things elsewhere in the story, and he always throws out these little statements that are like, oh wait, that's important, but I don't know why yet. And then when you read stuff later on, you're like, oh wait, did he just reference something I read before? I gotta think about that, because the first story is narrated in first person by the main character, but you don't know exactly what this main character is giving us for information. Well, of how trustworthy it all is, which from what I've heard of Wolf's other writings is a common trait amongst Wolf's characters, whether you can trust their viewpoints or what have you. And so the so the main character is trying to find his identity. He's trying to discover what that is and what that pertains and what he's going to do with that in the future. And there's some pretty um, wild stuff that happens, that he finds out, and that happens, that makes that first story really intense, and the first person narration really brings you in, and you really intensely live this character's life to find out what his place in this society is. Um, the the second novella in this book is called. Let me see here. It's called. Uh, it's just simply called A Story by John V. Marsh. And that's very interesting because John Marsh is a character that appears in the first story. He's just a side character, a minor character. But this story that John V. Marsh wrote actually is a story that takes place, is a story about an ancient culture on this planet prior to the French getting here and colonizing it. And so there you have your colonial theme working in to pre-colonial era society. And it's very interesting because this pre-colonial society um, it was prehistoric. It was very tribalistic. It was very, um, they not modern at all. Um, and they had he had different tribes doing different things, and this weaving of a story about you know different tribes going up against each other and interacting with each other, and sometimes conquering each other, like a colonial power conquered this whole planet. These tribes were doing the same thing to each other at the time, and so that theme of colonialism um, is is uh, is touched upon, and that theme, that one culture subsuming another culture is remarked upon, and looked at in a deep way. And you also learn a little bit about the history of the mythology of these original inhabitants of this planet, and how they worship the river and they worship the ocean. And that stuff all comes into play as we move into the third story, which is simply called by the initials VRT. You'll see why in the story. I'm not going to give that away. But the third story, the main character is John Marsh, and he's a doctor, and he's in prison for some reason. I'm not giving anything away there. That's stated right off the bat. Um, and so we get his story through his interaction with his jailers, and his jailers also reading his stuff. And so you get this multi-layered conglomeration of a story that comes from at you from all sides, and you get all these information that relates to things in the second story that was a story by John Marsh, but you can see where he may have got his information to write that second story. And so it all ties into that, and it all ties into the slight appearance of John Marsh in the first story. So we get a lot of nice little hints and stuff like that. We get a lot more exploration into colonialism in this one, as we get um, a real good look into the current culture and the current societies of this planet and its relation to to its sister planet, and we get a good look at what the natives think of the colonials, even though they might actually not be the actual natives. We don't know. We got to figure this stuff out for ourselves. Wolf never comes out and just hit you over the head with any kind of answers. No, don't expect that. Expect to try to figure things out yourself, and expect to be wrong, as I'm probably wrong about a whole bunch of things in here. Uh, so it really is a cool collection of three different stories that are very interrelated. If you want them to be, you could read these all separately and still enjoy them for what they are. But they really are just beautiful writing um, that makes you think about a lot of stuff. It has these deep themes of identity and colonialism and culture interaction and how it all relates together. And I really enjoyed the heck out of it. I am looking forward to more Gene Wolfe in the free future, and I hope you'll be able to check out a discussion I had on this book with my friends from the Page Chewing forums. Uh, we're doing the monthly Sci-fi Masterwork um, collections, and this month was the fifth head of Cerberus, and so that should be coming out next week sometime. So check out that discussion. That'll be full spoilers, so don't check it out if you haven't read the book yet. So I'm just giving you this little hint here to go out and go get this book. It's a lot of fun, and it really might intellectually it may crack your brain, but it also will make you think. And so that's all we can ask for from a good story. With all that said, be good to each other, and thank you.